Okay, so time waits for no man, and on we push. We will be looking at other ways to play around with the colour and all that, as we did in the previous section. But right now, we're going to look at graphics, and essentially the Essential Graphics panel, or tab. It's actually a panel, an essential graphics panel, and that's what this is. Yours will look a little bit different because I've downloaded a few. May come up with here, and good. This is what we're starting with. If you don't have this, go to Window and make sure that you check on Essential Graphics. That'll come somewhere around here. So, what is the Essential Graphics panel? Well, it's something that's been updated in recent years, and it used to be just the text element within Premiere Pro. But as you can see, if I scroll down here, some of these you will have, some of them you won't, and some of these are actually things that I've made up. But what they are essentially, sorry for the puns, they're animated kind of, how do we say this? The term I'm trying to avoid is MOGRT, which I kind of shouldn't really, because that's what these are. MOGRT, which stands for Motion Graphics Template, and that's what these are. And we will be looking at these in depth in a little while. However, what I want to do is I want to get to edit, and what I can't do is I can't get to edit without creating something first or dragging something in, and I'm not going to drag anything in yet. So how do we get around this? What we're going to do is we're going to put some text on screen. So I'm actually going to use these clips, or this clip that we're up to so far, and I'm going to, you're going to know what I'm going to do right now. I'm actually getting rid of all the Lumetri on there that we've played around with. I'm going to just add my corrected LUT and contrast, maybe up a little bit there, shadows. Good, happy with that. See how quick that was when you get used to it? I'm going to drag this out a little bit because I want a bit of time to play. Good. So what we're going to do is we're going to put some text on screen, and simply going to write pizza. How do we do that? Well, the shortcut is T. See how that changed? If I press V, that goes back to my selection tool. Let's go into Atom Editing. That's better. Thank you very much. And what I just did then was I switched between the selection tool, which is the arrow, and the text tool, which is this. And as you may have seen here, that switched between the two. Another shortcut. Rather than coming up here and clicking that and then going there, we can just literally hit T and we're ready to text. Now, to get text on the screen, you can either drag a box and say that's what I want to be typing in, or you can literally just click and start typing. Either way, as you may have seen here, let me just press Escape and Control and Z. The minute that you click in here with the type tool, or the text tool, is it the text or type? It's the type tool, well remembered. It will create a graphic on the next free track on video. So let's bring it to where we want it to come on. Maybe let's say here, and I want to write here, and I want to type pizza. So I've clicked in here, and I'm just going to hold down Shift, press P, and then I-Z-Z-A. I know I can spell. I know you're impressed. And if I press V now, this is the only time where this may trip you up. If I press V now, I'm not going to go back to the selection tool. I'm going to type V in here, obviously. So to commit this, your text in there, this is the same kind of shortcut that you have in the likes of Illustrator and Photoshop, but Escape will literally commit that. And now, although you can't necessarily see that anything's changed, if I press V, it actually selects all of the parameter of here, but in doing it, it's gone back to the selection tool, because what it's done is it's, rather than being in a type tool, it's gone to selection tool. So what can we do with this? Well, let's not have this selected right now, because let's not overcomplicate anything. But did you notice something there? You see that there? The anchor point is down at the bottom left. Where have we seen anchor points before? We have seen them here. There's an anchor point. What does that mean? Well, it's quite simple. With text, your anchor point will automatically be placed bottom left of the text. So that means if you're dragging it out, it comes up from the bottom left. That can always be changed, but by default, that's where Premiere Pro does it. Now that is one way to change the size of your font, but what I want to draw your attention to very quickly is just down here, because that is your font size. That has the same effect, but what we're doing here is we're actually scaling up the font rather than scaling up the graphic. The reason why that's important is because quite often you can get anti-aliasing, and whether you know what anti-aliasing is or not, you will have seen it. Let me just bring this right up. Let me see if we get any. We won't get any now. You just mark my words. We will not get any. No, of course we won't. Anti-aliasing is something that you get with vectors. Pay no attention to how I got this up here. We'll show you shortly. But I'm setting out the best practice so you don't ever really have to deal with it. And anti-aliasing is something that you get with vectors, and a text graphic is a vector. It's just a collection of shapes, and what you can get is, rather than a nice smooth curve around here, you can get stepping down like straight lines all the way down, and it looks awful, and it's not rounded, and it's not smooth, and it's not sharp. That's what you can get with anti-aliasing. And quite often that is when you scale up an already, I don't want to throw terms at you, but an already rasterized vector. So an already committed and finalized shape. And when you then scale it up, it's almost like when you zoom in to a picture that's not great quality, you're then going to start getting artifacts and noise and pixelation. So best practice is, if you want to scale up your text, you use this bad boy here, either using the scale, or by now, double click to take it. Double click. Double click does not work in font. On the font slider it doesn't work. Mark that down. Didn't know that. See, always learning. But it defaults at 100, not 10, Adam, at 100, and you can scale up or down from here. And you can also type in there, say 200, boom, it's twice the size. Good. What do we want to do with this? Well, first and foremost, let's get it the font and the size that we kind of want, because different fonts are different sizes by default, and there's no point placing it where we want to place it and then losing, having to move it again once we then change the font. So I'm going to go to one of my default fonts, which is Nor'Wester. I like Nor'Wester. It's a nice font, and we're going to scale this up ever so slightly. Pizza. Good. And then we're going to bring this down here. Okay, that looks nice. Let's play that back and see how it looks. Good. Now what you're probably already noticing is the fact that because this is created as a clip, effectively, it's a graphics clip, this, very much like an adjustment layer or an image, can be as long or as short as you want it to be. So with that in mind, when you click off a graphic, by the way, once you come back to it, you don't have all the information that you had before. We're in the edit tab, and we need to click what we actually want to change, and then we get everything else. Good. So what do we then want to do with that? I'm actually quite happy with that placing right there. However, if you wanted to place it along the bottom, or in the middle, or at the top, or center, all these things here will help you with that. This middle and center works very similar to this and this. However, those will affect once you have more than one graphic. you can align them all through the center or distribute them all. If you've got more than one, it will give you the option to distribute, but we're not touching that right now, so we're here. Now what else do I want to do with this? Well, I'd like to stretch it out slightly, so I'd like to take out the kerning ever so slightly. That looks good. It looks quite Italian, doesn't it? And what else do we want to do? Well, we can do loads of stuff. We can actually bring it up or down within itself, and that is dependent on if you have different lines and you want to really space them out, or you've got text on different lines within the same graphic. But just for here right now, I'm quite happy with all of this. You can really play around with all these, by the way. Obviously you'll be familiar with left, justified, center and right, and this, if you ever worked with Excel, you'll be aware of these, which are justify to the top, justify to the center, and justify or align to the bottom. So what else can we do with this? Well, we have a fill, which is white, but what should we change it to? I actually quite like the white color, but just to use a different color, we've got three ways to change the color. So we can click into what the fill is, and we can select our color. Just like we did with the color mat. So say we wanted it to be grey, fine, we've got it updating as we go. Say we wanted it to be red, we could come down to here and there is red. So that's one way to select a color. Another way to select a color would be to, if you're working for a brand and they have specific colors, they could give you a hex code, and it could be 6D6D6D, which is a grey. However, 6D6D is a really, I love this color. It's one of my faves. It's almost like a teal. So we're going to go with that, 6D6D. I love that, and it always shows you what the color was and what color you're selecting. Good. So that's done. What else can we do? Well, as you can see, fill is ticked, but nothing else is. So we could add a stroke. Before we do that, by the way, sorry, I did say there was 3 different ways to choose a color. You can also use, the color picker, and we could go around here and we could pick a color that's within our project. In the clip, we go for that one. Good. So that's another way to be able to color pick. I'm using that one because I really like that. So let's add a stroke. So that adds a white stroke all the way around it. That looks quite nice, doesn't it? We can adjust the thickness of the stroke, or the in pixels. So that's 10 pixels of a stroke. We can also add another stroke, and we could say we wanted this to be red because we've got the different colors of, say, the Italian flag. We could then stretch that out even further. Give me that, and see, all of a sudden we've got one fill and then 2 strokes. What else could we do? Well, we could add a background. Boom, done. Where did it add that background to? It added it right behind the text. However, it's right up against it. Remember, clicking in, then we need to click into edit as well. So what can we do with this background? Well, first and foremost, it's set at 75%. We could change that to 100%, so it's a full block color. We could scale it out a bit so it covers the whole of the actual word and gives us a bit of room. We could also change that color, so the background could change to, say, white. It almost looks like a pizza box now, doesn't it? And now that we're doing this, you can see, is it sitting correctly within itself? Well, this is where this alignment would change that. No, it was sitting absolutely perfectly, so quite happy with that. Anyway, moving on. Okay, so we've got absolute straight corners. We could round the corners a little, make it a little bit more, I don't know, a little bit softer, a little bit more fun. And finally, still within just this graphics panel, essential graphics panel, in a text, we could add a shadow. So the shadow is added to the text. See, let me just take that off and back. There we go. Maybe take up the opacity, or take down the opacity, as it were, like bring it more in view. And then we can blur it more. We can move it around. So move it around first. That's your distance. and then we can blur it a bit, and then we can add that blur. There's so many options. I mean, look, I know I may sound a little bit sad here, but the text panel used to be absolutely awful in Premiere Pro. But as you can see, just with a few clicks, you can make something that looks really quite smart. So with that all set, I'm going to have a little look back, and what do I want to change? Well, very little, other than you see how the red stroke is so thick that we don't really have the hole in the P and the A. So I'm going to bring that stroke back a little bit. Just there we go. Not too much, but just, yeah, that looks good for me. Now if I click out, I just want to show you this roll. Please don't ever use this. You can, but please only use it for, well, no, I don't want you to use it, but I'm going to show it you anyway. You see how that moved? That's because it's like this. It looks awful. The only time you would ever use this would be, say, if you're doing credits, but I will show you soon. There's a much better motion graphics template to be able to do credits, which is free within Adobe stock, and it's much better than that awful effort. So with that in mind, we have pizza right there, and great, that's it. So what else can we do with that? Well, we can make it longer, just like this and this. Pizza. I like that. It's good colors. And of course, we can fade it in and out. So we hold down Shift, draw across here. This is a real shortcut. I love this. And let go, and then hold down Shift D. And because we've held down Control, we only highlighted the ends of the clips. And with Shift D, we've added our default transition. And now, pizza. If you haven't got hungry so far in this whole course, then I'd be very surprised. Just for the record, that pizza was absolutely stunning. So those are all our things that we would like to do, or at least want to do, with our essential graphics by adding text. There are so many different things, as you can imagine, that you can do with this, just purely because of how it's all set up. But remember, this is effectively a clip. So you know how we had roll going up there? Well, let's size this down a little bit, and let me just show you what we can do with just a little bit of thought as to what we've done before. Does that pique your interest? Yeah. Well, let's see.